Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Extra Ring. So on today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what it takes to win a DMR match. So stick around. All right, so welcome to the channel. For those that are new to the channel, you guys might not know my background or the matches that I've shot. And what we're going to do is talk about DMR, Designated Marksman Rifles. Now, there has been a huge push for these matches, especially in the Southeast. They're coming up everywhere. I think you're going to see a huge boom of those in 2025. You've got the Geisley series that's going to be going on at Coleman's Creek. You've got the Proving Grounds, the Tactical Sniper series, and even the quantified performance matches that are all down here in the Southeast. So I think it is a very, very popular sport. And guys, over the last year and a half, I've shot 6 different DMR matches with 3 different organizations. Now, of those 6, I've won all 6 of those in open division. So that was usually shooting a 6mm max, or I actually shot 5.56 in 2 of those and won those as well. Now, of those 6 matches, 4 of them were overall match winner and 2 of them were second place. Even though I still won my division, I always look at how I do overall. So the information that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is coming from the heart, all right? It's not about me. I'm trying to show you guys what I do and how methodical I am on the stages, and it might help you gain some extra points. So before we get started right into it, you need to understand it really depends on which organization you're doing the match with. So if you're shooting something that's quantified performance, you've got different restrictions on not only optics, but also barrel lengths. There is no pistol element. However, when you shoot a Proving Grounds match, it's kind of like a run what you brung, and they'll have a tactical division for 5.56, open for anything that's not 5.56, and they have a bolt gun division. However, there is a pistol element in that. In the Geisley series, you're going to be running gas gun. You're going to have some restrictions on that as well, depending on if you're running a 1x10 or if you're running something that's a bigger optic, and there will be a pistol element. So be familiar with what you're signing up for. So before we get started into this, we're going to talk about the equipment that I use, and I'll show you that first, and then we'll go over how I break down stages. All right, so let's talk about the gear that I used for the last match, because it did change up just a little bit. One of the things you're going to notice with an AR style platform is that regardless of what type of polymer buttstock you're using, unless it's like the Magpul, like the PRS style, you're not going to be able to get that cheek riser up enough. So one of the things that I've used for many, many years has been the XLR buttstock. I can get this cheek riser perfect. I can get my length of pull perfect. I've got a good bag rider on here, and I do run an A5 systems. This is a factory built Sons of Liberty Gunworks. This is chambered in 6mm max. So I've done nothing to change the actual broadsword, okay? It is a factory gun, other than I do have a custom 22-inch barrel on this, and you're not going to be able to find that. I think the only one in the country that's got these are me. But 22-inch was something that I requested, and I got to give a big shout out to BC Precision Ballistics Brian Cook for getting this spun up for me. It's been phenomenal over the last year, and it is a proven performer. Guys, it doesn't matter if you choose a 6 max or a 5.56. I think most of these matches you could do all of it with a 5.56 and not have a problem. However, because most of them you're not going to shoot beyond 700 yards. They're 700 and in. Some of the QP matches will go out further, and I just wanted something that's got a little better ballistics than the 5.56, but on any of these matches you can shoot a 5.56 and be just fine. So what I've added to this, guys, you know, I always shot with like a 3-18 or a 4-14. I did use the new Collis 540i. This should be hitting the stores in the next month or so. Guys, I did a review on this. This is a phenomenal scope. And when I use the word phenomenal, I really mean it. This is otherworld. Because of the eye relief and the generous eye box with this large ocular, I know it's a rather large scope for a DMR rifle, but there's nothing to say that I can't run a large scope. I've seen no detriment by having a larger scope. So if you're wanting to run a 5.25 or a 7-35, I don't think there's a downside to it. I really don't. You don't have to use all the magnification that's available to you, but I don't need to run necessarily a small scope either. I am using the Area 419 mount. It is by far my favorite. This is a 36 millimeter diameter main tube, so I did need something that was 36. The beauty of the Area 419 stuff is that I can integrate everything I need to into this. Everything from my data card holder to my LRA holder, just made it super nice. And the layout on the Collis, having the parallax up top, windage on the left, made it super quick as well. As far as the ARCA, I'm going to highly recommend an ARCA because this is going to allow you to do a couple of things for these odd positions to where you can slide that bipod in or out. My bipod of choice for these type matches is going to be an MDT. Whether you use a double pull or whether you use a single pull at the PRS, it doesn't matter. The benefit of this bipod, while it's not the most stable, it's not going to be as stable as something like an AccuTac, you have the ability to splay the legs out. And that really makes a huge difference, especially when you get on a stage where you've got some elevation changes, where I'm having to shoot uphill and I can get this buttstock much lower by changing the angles here without having to worry about extensions. So this is a great bipod, although it's extremely pricey. And guys, you don't have to have this stuff. You got a PSA 16-inch gun or a Poverty Pony, there's nothing wrong with that. Run one of these matches, learn, and have fun with it. That's what it's all about. It doesn't matter how you finish, as long as you're learning and you're getting some impacts on there, you'll have a great time. I do run the VZ M-LOK inserts on here. These are by VZ Grips. It just gives me extra texture when I'm moving the rifle around. And for the first time ever on a gas gun, I am actually running the MDT weights on here. Guys, the biggest thing with the DMR is being able to spot your hits and your misses, okay? It's just like PRS, but it's PRS on steroids because you're shooting much faster. A lot of these are time plus point stages, so it's not like you have, 90 seconds or 120 seconds, and it doesn't matter how you get done as far as time. It is the most important thing to get it done very, very quickly because it is a time plus points match, at least for most of them anyway. All right, so now on the end here, what you're seeing on there is a muzzle brake. That is actually the Strike Without Warning. It was the first gen, it's not the newest one. And it does have a tuner function. I don't use the tuner. I don't think it really does much, so I'm gonna leave that alone. That's just locked down on the 0 position. But guys, you might love your suppressor. You might be proud of your suppressor, but this video is about winning, okay? And if you want to win, there's nothing going to be as effective as a muzzle brake. While a suppressor will change your recoil impulse and will make it softer, you're going to have to deal, and even the newer suppressors like the Thunder Beast that have the brakes built into them, and you've got some other companies coming out with them, like the Area 419 Maverick that's been out for a while, those are effective, but they're not going to be as effective as a plain muzzle brake. Plain and simple. In my testing, that's what I've seen. So while you want to look cool with that suppressor, it does you no benefit. And if you're saying, well, let's so the RO can hear the impacts. Guys, if he's listening for an impact, you got the wrong RO anyway, okay? Most of these match directors are going to have flashers on the targets anyway, and they should be looking for the splash and not listening for an acoustic confirmation. Because you take a 5.56 out to 700 yards, you can barely hear anything in the first place, and you're going to have other people shooting. So I don't recommend a suppressor, okay? The reason is I'm not getting as much recoil mitigation, but the other thing is, why do I want to introduce the possibility of having Mirage? Some of these stages, you might run through a 30-round mag. If you're having a bad time and you're not hitting this target, and let's say like the Geisy series, it's must hit to advance, and you start cranking rounds down range, you're going to get that thing super hot, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with Mirage that you're trying to look through, regardless of your suppressor cover. I don't care who it is, you're going to introduce heat into your vision, so I don't run those, okay? Now, these are all my personal opinions. You take it for a grain of salt, but I'm just telling you what works for me and why I choose it. I also have the TriggerTech trigger in here. It was a factory trigger, still one of my most favorite triggers for an AR platform. It is the TriggerTech Diamond. As far as bags, there are 2 bags, basically 3 bags that I carry. One is the Area 419 Game Changer or Armageddon Gear, whoever your favorite one is, but it's the Schmedium Game Changer Heavy Fill. This is used for majority of all of my stages, whether it's going to be the rear bag or whether I'm setting my rifle on top of it. It's going to be the most versatile one. I also carry one of the big ass pillows from Armageddon Gear. Guys, you might laugh at the pillow, but you don't lose matches by giving up a point or two, okay? You want to get every single point that you can, and if you can use a support bag like this, when everybody else is going to be using it. Now, if you just want to be hardcore and say, hey, I just want to run it, I want to run a bipod, then fine. You're not there to win. You're there to get experience and have fun. The other thing is using the Gray Ops, the plate. Okay, now I do have the brass weights on here. It does have the slim bag by Armageddon Gear. This is a heavy fill, and I use this more than about anything else. Guys, this right here will save you points, 100%. It's super stable, and if I have a position, because remember, this isn't PRS where I can take my time. I want to get in these positions as fast as I can and shoot them as fast as I can, and one less thing that I have to pick up or one less thing that I could possibly drop is better. So I place this in the proper position, and that way if I'm moving, let's say on a ladder or something like that, I've got no problem with it. So this is highly recommended. I don't go to any match without these 3 bags. Guys, you're also going to want a Kestrel, okay? And we're talking about winning here. You can do everything you want on a phone app, and while the phone apps are great, whether you're using a Streetlock Pro or using Applied Ballistics Quantum or any of the other multitude of ballistics apps, if you really want the best data, I think the Kestrel is going to be what you need, okay? I run a 5700X. I always keep a spare just in case. And I always keep a backup hard data card just so I have it in case one of them breaks, but then I have a second one. I also run the auto ears. Guys, I've been running these for about 4 years. They're great. They work well enough for me. If you're really, really sensitive to loud noises, especially with the brake, then you might want to double muff, use these internally, and then something on the outside. Another funny thing with me is, if you've ever seen me shoot, you've never seen me shoot with sunglasses. For as long as I can remember competing, I always use clear glasses. Don't like to use sunglasses because it seems like it changes the contrast for me regardless of the manufacturer. So I'm a huge proponent of clear lenses. I don't use amber or anything like that. I just want what I want to see, and I see it. I run the Gators. These have been with me for I don't know how many years. The other thing you're going to want to win is having some good type of chronograph. So this is going to be the Garmin like everybody else is running. This truly was a game changer for the industry. I'm running the Area 419 mounting plate on here so that I can get an accurate speed. I never run one of these during a match, but I've loaned it out to people during a match where they've noticed a huge velocity change. It does have a Gray Ops. It's a 3D printed cover, kind of protects it, and that's kind of the gear that I run. There's one more piece. I'm going to talk about the tripod as well. But guys, you want some type of plastic carabiner with a tether. The reason you want this is because there are some match directors that will make you start with this bag in your hand if it's not physically attached to the rifle. And you might say, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, if you can tether this to your stock, it's now physically attached to the rifle. Call it gaming, call it whatever, but if you're vying for first or second place and this other guy has a tether and you don't, you're having to start and put it under your rifle, get it all settled, whereas this guy can have it, you know, here. He's not aiming it downrange, but he's already got it there. He's already getting another second or two on you, and everything matters at that level of the competition. So that's it as far as the bags and the equipment and the gear and stuff that I have. Let's talk about the tripod setup. All right, guys, now, while you don't have to spend the money that I've spent on this stuff, this is your office, okay? This is where all of your base of operations need to happen. I couldn't do what I do without having this stuff to give me the information that I need. It doesn't matter if you're using Vortex binos or whatever. This happens to be a set of the Kilo 10Ks, the SIGs, and I use this for range finding. You know, it's that whole trust but verify. I know match directors do a great job of getting accurate yardages, but I've seen some gross errors, and I always confirm every single time myself. I also have the Swarovski. This is the STR80. In my opinion, it is the best spotting scope made, period, end of story. And the reason is I have a digital reticle in here. It is a first focal. I can turn that reticle on and off, get corrections, see corrections, measure target sizes, and it's all available to me right then and there. Guys know that I use Allen systems. If I need to film or digiscope. That's how you guys get most of the downrange footage. I think it's the simplest and the best system out there for doing that. And I'll have that at the match because sometimes I can just leave it recording, and if I wanted to verify an impact or where it hit after the fact or look at some of the impacts, I can see that. I do run a gray ops plate. I've already expressed my displeasure with the mounting locations on this, but it does work and it works well. For a tripod, I do have the really right stuff. This is the TFCT 24, I think, and then I'm using the Armageddon Gear tripod bag. Now, guys, when I go to a match, of course, you're going to go to your safety brief first thing in the morning. They're going to go over the rules. They'll break you up into the squads, and then you're going to disperse to your shooting area. What I like about a lot of these DMR matches is almost all of them are going to be like field stage matches. You're not going to be shooting in a bay. You're not going to be shooting with 60 other people. You'll have your squad. There might be another squad on another stage close by, and you will just move from from location to location doing the stages, but they're usually natural terrain, something that you would really see in like a type of DMR. So, that's how you approach things. Now, let me go over the methodical steps that I do and how I do it on these stages. So let's say I'm on squad 7. I just shot a match this weekend and fortunate enough to take first place in that overall as well as first place in open division. We started on stage 7, squad 7, stage 7. And the first thing that I did, as soon as I got out of the truck, I don't care about my rifle and that other stuff. I take this setup, I take my office, and I go to the shooting location. Now guys, be careful because some match directors are very strict about this, and many times you're not allowed to touch the prop. I never touch a prop without getting approval first, and I usually don't touch props anyway. What that means is if there's a barricade or a position that you're shooting off of, don't be putting your hand up there and air gunning it and all that. I know in PRS you're not allowed to do that. So until you start seeing other people do it and you get permission to do that, I wouldn't air gun or touch props. So the reason that I'm up there on the stage is I want to get that exact distance to these targets. I don't even know at this point, what the stage description is. I really don't know which targets that I'm shooting. What I've really seen in most of these DMRs is there might be an array of 4 or 5 targets, something like that. And you have to shoot target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're going to start back over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the early days, you double tap, double tap, double tap, double tap, double tap. But the problem with that is ROs were having an extreme issue for guys that were shooting quick, that had quick follow-up shots. Pow, pow, they got 2 in the air, they get 2 impacts. It's hard to see those 2 impacts. So by doing this, they can confirm those hits, and then they start over. These plates have already settled at this point, and then you'll be able to confirm those hits again. So first thing I do is I go onto the stage, and I'm gonna look downrange because it's probably going to be facing in the direction of the target array. And what I'll start doing is glassing what I think is correct, and then I will start getting yardages. You can take a simple whiteboard card like this, and you guys have seen me use this before, but basically this is from the match. This was a stage setup, and there were an array of 5 targets. Now these were all pretty darn close. Doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to confirm those distances. I use wet erase only, not dry erase, because I don't want this stuff wiping off. If it's raining, you want to make sure you have a grease pencil. Then I just drill a little hole in it, put a plastic carabiner so that the wind is not moving this around. I have Velcro chaps on here. I've applied Velcro tape on the back side of this. So if I need it up here, it'll stay here. Usually everyone comes up to this office and they'll confirm these distances because that's what I'm doing first and foremost. I can get the guns and all that other stuff later. Once I do that and I've confirmed and I hear the stage description, now I want to go ahead and build my dope card. And so what I will do is I always keep about 15 or 20 of these, and basically it's your data card with Velcro on the back, and I will go ahead and write my yardages down. I write the yardage down, and then what I will do is I will spin up my Kestrel. I already have my data card where it's in my office space here. I've got it Velcroed, it's not going to blow away, and I will go ahead and spin up my environmentals on the Kestrel. In case the density altitude changed or anything like that, I'll go ahead and write down that data for those distances, basically my holds. You do not want to dial in a DMR match. Guys, if you are dialing, you are losing, okay? I'm not saying you can't shoot a stage, but you got to remember on these DMR matches that have a pistol element, whether it's in the beginning or whether it's at the end, a pistol target counts the same as a target at 700 yards. You want to make sure you've allocated yourself enough time to take care of business and get to both of those platforms, whether it's the rifle or the pistol, and be done in time. So every second that you're sucking up dialing that elevation or dialing that dope, you're taking away time on the backside. Guys, you want to run 100-yard zero, and you want to have good dope all the way out to 700-800 yards. I know not everybody has the ability to have access to a range that will take you out to 700, but sometimes you just have to drive, but you want to definitely get some confirmed data and try to confirm your zero on the day of the match. There were quite a few guys on our stage that were high, even on the closer targets, and it was because they didn't re-zero and they came from a long ways away, completely different elevation and all of that, and their dope was running high all day long. So definitely try to zero on the day of the match. There were a ton of guys, you know, zeroing their rifles first thing in the morning, and this was probably 45 minutes before the match actually started. So definitely utilize that time. You can go ahead and get that barrel fouled if you'd already had a clean barrel, and that way you'll know where this thing's zeroed. All right, so the best way for me to convey this is to pretend we are on a stage. So the first thing I do is I get on the stage. I don't know what it is. I'm going to see some targets down range, and we're just going to pretend we're starting at yellow, 400, then we're going to go 450, 500, 550, and 6, okay? So 4, 450, 5, 550, 6. We'll say 5 targets. I will confirm that. I will go ahead and write it up. Let's just go ahead and do it now while we're here. So I've confirmed the distances. I'm going to take my pen. I might write out that on the white data card holder, but what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to write my target array order here. So what I'll do is on this card, I will have 4, 450, 5, 550, 600. So I know what my target distances are going to be. Then I just do a little hash mark like this. It really doesn't matter how you do it, guys. But now I need to know what my holds are here, okay? So I'm going to take up my Kestrel. I have not shot a single round all day. Matter of fact, the last time I zeroed this was in South Carolina. That's over 2,000 and something feet of elevation change. But I'm going to take my Kestrel. It should take that into account. Other than my clean cold barrel, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to go down to environment. I'm going to make it live, and then I'm going to lock it. You never want to leave it just running live if you can help it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my range card. I'm not going to worry about wind or anything else. I'm just trying to get this. Let me go ahead and change my step to 50 yards. And we're going to go to 450. So my first dope is 1.8. Excuse me, 400 yards is 1.8. So what I do is I write 1.8, and then I look at 450 is 2.2, 500 is 2.7, 550 is 3.2, and 600 is 3.8. So I've got my data. I know what it's going to take to hit those if I was dialing, okay? At least if everything's right on the Kestrel. I don't really care about the position or any of the other stuff. Remember, I just got to the stage. I've just got my yardage. I know that. But I don't need to be holding down to 3.8. So what I was telling you guys is if you needed to subtract, then off to the right, what I do is I will dial 1.8 on my scope. It's got a 100-yard zero. I will dial 1.8. That will make that 0. What I do is I just go on down the line here, and I subtract 1.8 from each number. All right, so if we subtract the closest target, 1.8, from all of these, then we can do a second column here. 1.8 minus 1.8 is 0. You just subtract 1.8 from all of these. Now I can hold dead zero, hold on that first target. It's a 0 hold, and then it's 4/10, 9/10, 142, as opposed to all the way out to 3.8. So I'm going to be shorter in my reticle. It's going to make a lot more sense. But I'll always have both of these datas recorded, because if I screwed up on my math, or something like that, I can always refer to my dial on what I should do. Now at that point I'm in plan B, but I've got my true dial that I can do. I'm going to stick this on the rifle, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to move this camera over, and what I'll do is I will attach this. I'll attach the data card to the data card holder. I have it in a position where I can see it, and then I just fold it away. What I do is I know my first target is going to be 400 yards. I'll set my parallax at 400. I know I need to dial in the 1.8, so I will dial in 1.8. Now, like I said, I haven't shot a single round today, so I'm hoping that everything's correct. I'm going to check to make sure that my windage is on 0, make sure that's good. I'm going to make sure that my LRA is on. Now, what power? Okay, you're not going to be using huge power, but this is where having my office up here really matters, guys. You got to remember, I know that this is a 10 power fixed. And if I'm looking at that field of fire and I want to have a good view of the target, guys, 10 power is plenty enough to shoot these targets, but I have too much of a field of view, okay? I don't want to close my field of view. Remember, power is of the devil. You want to make sure you can see everything well. So what I'll do is I will look at the power that's on this Swarovski, and I will say, all right, well, I can see all 5 targets with decent resolution. Now, this only goes down to 20, so 20 is going to be too much. So based on that, I'm probably going to be good if I use something like 15 power on this, because they're actually pretty close. The closer the targets are together, typically the more power I will use, but you're going to be living in that 12 to about 15 power range. Now at the previous match to this one, they had a KYL at 300 and some change, and it got me because I was running a Night Force 4 to 14, and that 14 power didn't give me enough power to see where I was missing on a 2-inch KYL. That cost me. That's what made me, number one, want to try the Collis, but saying, hey, if I need to jump up to 20 or I need to jump up to 25, I can do that. On this suburban stage here, there were 4 targets in a row in a cluster, maybe 10 feet apart, and they were at 685 yards. I actually shot that at 20 power. The rifle's not going to move off target. I'm going to be able to see where my misses or my hits are. And so that's what helps me determine what power I need to use, because a lot of these directors, match directors, especially with the Proving Grounds match, you are never allowed to take a sight picture, okay? So it needs to be ready to go. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's say that in the stage description with the RO, it says, starting with rifle at port arms, buttstock touching belt, engage 5 targets, 4, 455, 556, from the top of the sandbag. 2 times each, alternating from near to far. So you're going to go near to far, and then you're going to go near to far again. So looking at this, knowing that this barricade here, this barrel, is going to be a kneeling position. Remember, I don't want to touch anything if I don't have to. We want to think about kneeling. Now, I see a lot of guys, especially newer guys, they'll automatically assume a right knee. Well, I have no support here, right? This is a bad position. I've got a chicken wing that's floating. This is not the best position for me to be in to be able to engage those targets. Now, remember, you don't want to touch it. You can get behind it. So what I want to do is a reverse kneel instead, okay? That way I've got some place I can put my arm, although it's going to be kind of low. I might want to use a pump pillow. This would be a perfect example of that, because now I can get on that pump pillow, I can rest it, and I could say, well, they gave us a sandbag, but what if there was no sandbag here? What if it was just a bare top? Matter of fact, we'll just put a bare top here, and I'll say, all right, well, could I use that plate that's on here, that's on my rifle, the Gray Ops plate, put it on here? So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to need a bipod, although you could use a bipod. Maybe I would want to try something like this. Remember, you can't be touching these obstacles. That would be good. So in theory, in my head, I'm thinking I'll be able to do this with a rear bag, and I'm pretty solid. That's what I would be thinking in my head. Now, I don't know, because I'm not going to be able to get on this target and try this out. And remember, on this big ass, it's a trapezoidal. So that's going to help me determine, do I want it this way or do I want it this way? Because this is rather tall, I'm probably going to do it this way. Okay, so now let me change the angle so you can see this. Now what I'm thinking is when I get into the start position, starting port arms, rifle touching the buttstock on the belt, when the buzzer goes off, I can set this down, reverse kneel, and look at that. I have no movement whatsoever. I want to make sure that it's low enough so that I can get on that first target. Okay, that is very, very important to make sure you can get on that first one, because what I don't want to be doing is trying to crane up on it. So on this right here, I've got the rifle set on 9 power. My field of view is too huge. I can see my reticle, I can read the numbers, but why wouldn't I have it somewhere around right here? That's where I'd shoot that. That'd be about a 12 power. So I should be able to hit the yellow, I can hit the 450, 500, 550, 6. That's about what it looks like. And this is a tough position, guys. So I know that I've got everything ready. Typically, I will have my bipod on this, even though I'm not going to use it. So that way, when I'm getting staged, this is going to be pointed in a safe area. They usually have a designated area that's safe, that's downrange. But you need to have all your crap ready. Magazines ready. You don't want them waiting on you. So what we'll do is we'll try this for the first time. I've not shot a single round, and I'll talk you through it while I'm doing it. We'll have the all-in system recording. Maybe we'll get a hit, maybe we won't. But if you're not shooting, as a competitor, you need to be on your spotting scope for the first 2 or 3 shooters. Guys, what this does, it gives you an opportunity to think about what your wind call is and base that off of what you see downrange and what tendencies are going on. Now, I don't know if Joe Schmo here thinks he sees a 1/2 mil left. I don't know if he's a good shooter. I don't know if he's a bad shooter. I'm assuming a lot of things. But I can see bullet trace. I can see where most of these impacts or misses are going, and I can kind of base that off of 3 shooters. I already know in my mind what I want to do, but I can use them as confirmation. This is not the time. I've said it time and time again. Yes, you're there to have fun, but if you're there to win, this is not the time to be grab-assing with your buddies and talking about the latest red dot and this, that, and the other. You need to be on the glass for the first 3 shooters, minimum, okay? You can also help the RO and calling impacts as long as he knows that you're doing that, and as long as you're comfortable doing that. Let's say you're the next to the last shooter. Well, help on the squad. Even me, as long as I've been doing that, I always help as much as I can no matter what. It helps me learn, and I can also learn the target array. Now, before I ever shoot it, I'm also, let's say I am the next to the last shooter, and I know I have all this time, then what I'm doing is in my mind, I'm thinking, what is a visual reference point for that first target? This is where everybody loses time. There were some guys on this last squad that are good shooters that I saw them taking over 30 seconds on the first shot. 30 seconds, you're not going to finish the stage, or if you do, you're not going to be that competitive. Remember, we're trying to win here. So what I'm doing is I'm looking, I'm seeing that first one, and let's say it's a bigger spread. I need to think to myself, first target, holding 0. Second target, 4/10. Guys, I haven't looked at that data card. Next target, 9/10. Next target, 1/4. Well, guess what? Just from me writing it down or putting it here, I will have this, look at that, 0, 4, 9/10, 1/4, 2. I've got it in my head so that I don't need to be referencing this card. This is my, technically this would be my plan B. Plan A is up here. So I want to memorize not only the locations, but also what that dope is where I don't have to reference it. Every time I look out of that scope and be looking towards the data card, I'm giving up time to somebody else. So if it's a bigger spread, then I can say target 1, then I'm going to move laterally right. You know, is it dead right at 3 o'clock, or is it more diagonally up at 1 o'clock? That way I'm not looking for these targets while I'm shooting. You probably won't be able to have a magnification where you can see all the targets in one field of view, and this is going to help you determine which power you want to use, okay? So, like I said, in my case, the 12 works. I could probably bump it up a little bit more. This will give me that determination, hey, that's a pretty close field of view. I should be okay. So let me grab a shot timer. Let me see if I can actually hit these targets, and we'll see, and I'll talk you through what I'm doing. All right, so when I come up to the line, you want to make sure you have your chamber flag in there. You've got your bipod. What I usually do is I'll take the bipod off if I don't need it on the stage, and I'll put it close. The chamber flag, I'm not a big fan. Let's say you get the load and make ready. I'm not a big fan of throwing these on the ground. A lot of guys do that. I know that this is my lifeline though. I want to make sure that it works. And you're going to be starting most of these with bolt forwards on an empty chamber. So they'll say load and make ready. I will go ahead and insert my magazine. Always push and pull to make sure it's in there, and we are good to go. We already had our dope set in. I know that I'm 0, then I'm 4/10, then I'm going to be 9/10, 1, 4, and 2. That's just what it is. Your pistol now, if you needed to load it, would be the time to go ahead and insert a magazine. Once again, check it, clear it, go ahead and insert your magazine, and you're going to be empty chamber, holstered like that. So now I'm pretty much ready to do this, okay? I don't know how I'm gonna do, I haven't done this, but I'm gonna have this ready to go for this first position. Remember, butt stock on this was gonna be on the belt, and here we go. We'll see how we do. And I'm gonna talk you through this. I'm not gonna shoot it as fast as I can. I wanna talk you through what I'm doing. So, is the shooter ready? Yep, shooter's ready. Stand by, and so I'm usually going to have the grip and all that, but I got to hit the start button, and we're going to start it. Buzzer goes off. I set the rifle, set my rear back. I'm racking it because I'm already down range, and I'm kind of looking through the scope. The first target is going to be that yellow target on the left at 400. I should be able to hold 0. Here we go.